You're tuned in to The Andrew Lawton Show.
All that notwithstanding, there are plenty of killjoys, not just Saskatchewan Tourism Board officials, but also federal court judges. And there was one ruling over the holidays that we have followed this case for a little while on, and it was on this sign that you may have seen in an election campaign, the Libranos. Libranos.com. Buy the book. The book is, as it's called there, The Libranos, was written by Ezra Levant of Rebel News. And the elections bureaucrats, the Commissioner of Canada elections, came down hard and said that sign wasn't actually a book advertisement, but it was an election campaign sign. It was an election campaign sign, and you aren't allowed to do it without going through all of these rules that we have for election advertisers, for third parties and political parties. Now, Ezra pointed to a section of the law which specifically says advertising books, like it literally says advertising books is in a category of its own and are exempt from this. So he challenged this, brought it to federal court, and a judge ultimately signed on to the narrative put forward by the Commissioner of Canada elections and found that those signs were illegal. Ezra Levant is the author of The Libranos and the founder of Rebel News and joins us now. Ezra, I mean, you and I have had a number of conversations over the years about our dissatisfaction with the judicial status quo. So I don't want to say that I'm totally shocked by this, but this is like a clear-cut example of when the court is finding that the law doesn't say what the law says.
I have to tell you, I was completely shocked by this for two reasons. First of all, the plain words in the Canada Elections Act exempt books and the promotion of books from their election finances, which makes sense. I mean, it also exempts news and speeches and letters, because imagine if every newspaper article that was an endorsement of this party or a criticism of that party were to be banned or regulated by the government. It would be madness. So it applies to books or the promotion of books. And as you can see, because you just showed your viewers there, the promotion of books was very simple. That was the front cover of our book called The Libranos with 3 added words: buy the book. But that enraged Elections Canada. They were obsessed by that book cover and that title. They were obsessed by the drawings on it of Trudeau and his friends. And so they thought it was so critical that the book and the title of the book, they said, were banned, and the judge agreed. And so I suppose technically the book itself is not banned, but if you've banned the title of the book and you ban the cover of the book, you sort of ban the book. And by the way, you can buy that book right now on Amazon.ca. But if there were an election called tomorrow, it would be banned again, or at least the cover of it and the title of it, and I couldn't show it. And I don't know, I was really surprised.
And conceivably, you couldn't run like online ads for it, without being, do I read that correctly?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they didn't like the lawn sign because they thought it sure felt like a political campaign. And it's true. Lawn signs are something that are used in political campaigns, but we also had online ads. We also had a billboard. We also made videos. We also did emails. Elections Canada only prosecuted this image. But I want to tell you, Andrew, there were 23 other books published about Justin Trudeau during the exact same time period. I'm talking about right before the election in 2019. 23 other books. And they were positive towards Trudeau. They were boosting him. It would be like a campaign ad for them. But of course, they're exempt because they're books, so they were not prosecuted. I asked the Elections Canada people, and my lawyer asked the judge, how is it that those 23 pro-Trudeau books are fine, but my one anti-Trudeau book is not? And both the Elections Canada staff And the judge agreed, well, if I didn't like those 23 other books, I should have complained about them. But I don't want to complain about those 23 other books. I mean, I can complain about them, but I don't want to prosecute them. And
Yeah.
you know what? The judge said, and if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind reading very quickly from the actual ruling.
Please,
The
please. I was about to
judge
ask
said
you for that.
the judge says it was no big deal. All I had to do was act like a political party, register with the government, disclose my finances to the government, and comply with the government. And I could have the lawn sign in my book all I like.
So
All I
basically
had to
become one
do.
of those registered third-party political activist groups like Lead Now or,
Yeah.
whatever.
Here, I'm just going to read very quickly. Here's one
Mhm.
sentence from the judge. Even if the promotion of a particular book is election advertising, such promotion is not prohibited. She's saying my book wasn't banned. Quote, the third party, that would be me, must simply comply with the requirements of the Act that apply to all third party election advertisers. Authors or publishers comply with the spending, registration, and disclosure requirements. So, it's no big deal. All I have to do is register my book with the government. But just let me say that again. All I have to do as an author, just register with the government. Let me read one more sentence from the judge. When we argued, well, that would be a kind of chilling effect to require authors to say, hello, government, we'd like to register our book with you. The judge said, quote, it should not be overly onerous for an author or a publisher to demonstrate what their intention was as to the timing of the promotion. As in, I had to justify publishing the book during an election. And because I did so, that's what made it an illegal book. But every political book is published during an election. You don't publish a book after the election about the election. That's a totally different book. Then, like I say, 24
Mhm.
publishers, 24 authors all had the same idea. Let's talk about Justin Trudeau in the 2019 election. The judge says, I just read it to you. The judge said, I should have justified to the government why I did it during the election. I don't know. I'm really surprised by this. My fine is $3,000 plus $10,000 for the court case. So I have to pay the government $13,000. That's not the end of the world, although that's a very stiff fine for publishing a book. But both the judge and Elections Canada had a warning for me. They both said that they could have come after me criminally, and theoretically, I could have been jailed. And they both hinted to me that if I do this again, I will be prosecuted criminally. No one in Canadian history has ever been prosecuted for publishing a book critical of a politician. And I say again, it was the fact that I was critical of him
Mhm.
that bothered them. They said so again and again. And if you read the ruling, it's 85 pages long. We put up a website for those who want to
Mhm.
see it and see my side of the story. The website is saverebelnews.com, because I think that really goes to our freedom. If
Just
it's
let me
85,
just
yeah,
jump in there, Ezra.
yeah.
Was your legal case? I know you weren't fighting it yourself. You had a lawyer, but was your case a constitutional free speech, freedom of expression case, or was it just listen? Your own law says that the promotion of books is fine. Therefore, your application of the law against us is completely made up.
It was both. And the judge dismissed that second one very quickly, too quickly. I mean, and again, I
How
quote
did the judge rationalize that? Because literally, you can see the words right there.
yeah. Well, there's three parts. Your book has to be published at a commercial price. My book was $14, which is commercially fair. And it has to be published whether or not there was an election. Well, we would have published my book whether or not there was an election. Of course, we were going to publish it. And I don't even know what it means that there wouldn't be an election, but
Well,
yeah,
and in Canada also, I mean, the 2019 election was fixed in
that's
2015,
right.
but in our system, there can be an election. I mean, there could be an election in 40 days that you
Right.
have no idea is coming.
Right. And listen, I was honest with the judge, and I was honest with the cops who interrogated me. I said, we did what every other author did, is we coincided with the election, but we would have published it whether or not. I mean, I've published more than 10 books. And we publish them during an election. We publish them when it's not an election. I have another book coming out about Justin Trudeau. Ideally, I would publish it right before the election. It would be terrible if I was late until after the election. But the law does not stop me from timing it. It doesn't. It just says I have to publish it whether or not there's an election. She thought that was a silly difference, that there was no difference. And then
we have Elections Canada has to. Oh, there we go. I thought Elections Canada was coming after you, but we appear to have gotten you back now, Ezra.
sorry about that. I'm on the road. The judge said the timing of the publication is one of the things that made it illegal. But like I say, 23 other authors timed their books the exact same time. I'm worried about this, Andrew.
Well, you mentioned you have another book coming out. I mean, what are you? Not that I would ever say that you are a generally compliant person with government edicts, but what is your plan going to be if you've gotten that far on what to do about that book?
Well, I'm going to publish it. And I don't want to be charged, and I don't want to be convicted, and I certainly don't want to be fined, and I absolutely don't want to be jailed.
You also don't want to register with the government, right?
I'm absolutely not going to. And, I remember during the COVID times, the lockdowns, I made some personal decisions that I was not going to comply. Now, they never came down hard on me like a ton of bricks, but I was on their no-fly list because I was unjabbed. I didn't get a vaccine passport, and I just decided I was not going to comply. And I am not going to register my next book with the government. I'm just not going to. In terms of the exact timing of the book, obviously it's going to be before the next election. We don't know when that next election will be. But if we are at the point, Andrew, in Canada, when a critic of the government, when an author is prosecuted and, God forbid, convicted of a crime and jailed for writing a book about him, then that person should be me. Because I say I believe in freedom, and I say I believe in fighting back. And just like I felt an obligation to walk the walk during the lockdowns, I feel an obligation here. And if it's not me, who would it be? I mean, God, I don't want you to be prosecuted for your book. I don't want anyone else, but I know that I've got the fighting spirit. And our viewers generally like to crowdfund these battles. So I am going to publish another book before the next election, critical of Justin Trudeau. It's going to be a real book. It's going to be sold at a real price. It's going to be published whether or not there's an election, but we're going to time it before the election. I'm just going to do that. And if that sends me to jail, and God forbid, and I hope it doesn't, Canadians ought to know that's the country we live in now.
Just on the note of this one, are you going to bring this to the Federal Court of Appeal?
Yes, we've hired a great lawyer. Sarah Miller is her name.
She's been on the show a number of times. Yeah, she's fantastic
good. Yeah.
On free speech.
I think she's really smart. I chose her because she's had good luck in the Court of Appeals. She was the one who took Arthur Pawlowski's case, the Christian pastor who was jailed in Alberta for keeping his church open. She won that on appeal. And I thought, boy, I need a smart lawyer who'll do well in the Court of Appeal. So she's already, at least she's shown me the notice of appeal. I think she's filed it already. It's an uphill battle. I got to tell you, most appeals in court fail. It's just a statistical thing. I think 2 out of 3 lose. And this was a well-crafted ruling by the judge. She wasn't, 85 pages she took to make her case. So I'm not optimistic. It's not about the fine. I mean, the fine does bother me. It's about the law itself. It's crazy. We would appeal.
And what it says to people that don't have your spirit and, frankly, your finances to fight this stuff. I mean, if you're just some, self-published author that wants to make a point, and maybe you want to, spend a couple $1,000s promoting your book, this does have a chilling effect.
Absolutely. And I just can't get over the fact that the judge said that, it's no big deal. It's not onerous. I mean, I was called to the headquarters of Elections Canada, and 2 30-year RCMP veterans interrogated me for an hour. Now, you know me, I don't mind that. I like the sparring of it.
You enjoy it. You're bored when you're not being interrogated by some bureaucrat or police officer. Yeah.
But unless you're a lawyer or a real tough cookie who's used to fighting, I wasn't terrified, but I think 99% of people would have been really scared by that. And the fine, the $13,000 fine, I think that would dissuade a lot of people, not everyone has $13,000 to pay the fine. Now, we're going to crowdfund this appeal, and hopefully we won't have to pay it in the end. But for the judge to pretend there was no chilling effect here, that really is one of the worst parts of this ruling. I'm just going to read that again for 30 seconds. Quote, "It should not be overly onerous for an author or publisher to demonstrate what their intention was." As in, you've got to go to the government and say, no, we're not trying to criticize you, Saint Trudeau. Please, this is just a book. You know what? That the judge was wrong there. I don't want this to become a legal precedent. I fear it will be, but we've got to fight it.
Very well said, Ezra Levant, the rebel commander himself. Thank you so much, and best of luck.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Andrew Lawton Show. Support the program by donating to True North at www.tnc.news.